If you break your arm, the X-ray shows that jagged white line on the dark film, and the doctor just points to it and says, well, there it is.
Right. It's totally binary. Broken or not broken.
Exactly. It's clean, it's objective, and honestly, it's comforting. We really like things to be visible and categorized neatly in black and white.
Oh, absolutely. But when you step into the world of language specifically, trying to map the entire human experience into another language, suddenly that X-ray machine just shatters.
Yeah, you can't just swap an English word for a French word and expect the picture to be perfectly clear.
No, not at all. We are looking at a linguistic landscape that is inherently murky,
Yeah.
Because you aren't just learning new labels for the same old thing.
Right, you're mapping an entirely different way of perceiving reality.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters. When you approach a new language, especially at an advanced level, you're forced to confront the fact that different cultures categorize existence itself differently.
And a word in English might represent, like, a simple action, while its French counterpart carries centuries of philosophical weight, or social hierarchy, or emotional nuance.
Exactly. And we have this massive, incredibly dense stack of French vocabulary lists in front of us today to prove it.
Yeah, just pages of terms. I mean, if you just glance at these sources, it looks like a wall of text, flashcards waiting to be painfully memorized.
Which is the worst way to learn, honestly.
It really is. But these aren't just lists. They are the literal building blocks of the human experience, deliberately categorized from our deepest, most private inner thoughts, all the way out to global internet communication.
So true.
Okay, let's unpack this. How do we take a mountain of vocabulary, this daunting catalog of human existence, and turn it into something you can actually use?
Without just rote memorizing until your eyes glaze over, right?
Yes, exactly. Because nobody wants that.
Well, rote memorization is the fastest way to kill your passion for a language, and it rarely sticks long-term anyway. So for this deep dive, we are going to act as your guides through a very specific step-by-step method to absorb this material.
I love a good method. Break it down for us.
It's a threefold approach. Step one, we categorize the vocabulary. We examine the psychological or physical box the French language puts a concept into.
Okay, step one is categorize. Got it.
Then step two, we understand the why behind the grammar and the mechanics. Like, why does the language force you to phrase a thought a certain way?
Right, the mechanics. And step three.
Step three, we contextualize. We are going to pull real-world examples and historical narratives directly from the text to anchor these words in reality.
Categorize. Understand the why. Contextualize. I love that. We are basically turning a vocabulary list into a masterclass in language and culture.
We really are. And what's fascinating here is how these categories reveal the French perspective on life, science, and socializing.
And the way the source organizes these lists provides our roadmap, right? We are starting at the very beginning of the human experience.
Exactly. Before you can communicate with anyone else, before you can debate philosophy or navigate a Parisian street, you have to exist.
You have to process your own thoughts first.
Right. And the source labels this foundational section, les états d'être, the states of being.
The states of being. That sounds so philosophical right out of the gate.
It really does. It's the fundamental life cycle, but categorized not just as biological milestones, but as states of existence. It gives us the anchor verbs.
So we start with naître, to be born.
Right, naître. Then grandir, to grow. But from there, it shifts away from pure biology and gets incredibly poetic with the verb s'épanouir.
S'épanouir. That is such a uniquely evocative word. I mean, in English, we might say someone is growing up or maybe thriving.
Thriving is close, but s'épanouir literally translates to blossoming or opening up like a flower.
Oh, wow. The text gives this example, l'enfant s'épanouit quand il est aimé. A child blossoms when he is loved.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's not just about getting taller or passing school grades. It's about a holistic, psychological unfurling of the self.
An unfurling of the self. I
Yeah.
love that phrasing. And it applies to adults just as much as children, right?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can s'épanouir in a new career or in a new relationship. It signifies reaching your full, vibrant potential.
But of course, the cycle doesn't stop at the blossom. It continues with vieillir, to grow old, and finally mourir, to die.
Right. And what stands out to you about how the source handles the later stages of this cycle?
Honestly, the cultural reverence baked into the phrasing. The source highlights a specific phrase, en vieillir avec dignité, We grow old with dignity.
Yes. That feels so profoundly French, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
When you look at American culture, there is this massive multi-billion-dollar industry entirely focused on anti-aging, just fighting the process every step of the way.
Right, hiding the wrinkles, dyeing the hair.
Exactly. But this French phrasing, growing old with dignity, it just accepts the state of being.
The text actually notes, on vit de plus en plus longtemps, people live longer and longer. So that dignity, that grace associated with the later stages of life becomes a central cultural value.
Rather than something to be hidden away.
Exactly. So let's apply step 3 of our method here, contextualizing with a narrative.
Okay, let's do it.
The source provides a brilliant historical puzzle to show these states of being in action, using the biography of Charles Perrault.
Oh, Perrault. If you know Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, or Puss in Boots, you know his work.
Right, he essentially laid the foundations for the modern fairy tale genre.
And tracking his life through these verbs gives him so much gravity. We start with the anchor, naître. Charles Perrault was born in 1628 in Paris.
And we move to grandir. He grows up in Paris, distinguishing himself as a brilliant student in high school and university.
He originally wants to devenir to become a lawyer.
But his trajectory shifts, illustrating that Sepanor phase we discussed. He doesn't just grow, he blossoms into a prominent cultural and political figure.
In 1671, he is elected to the Académie Française, which is like the absolute pinnacle of French literary and linguistic authority.
He is definitely thriving. He is shaping the very culture of France under King Louis XIV.
But the text doesn't just focus on the upward trajectory, which is interesting. It throws in a massive emotional and professional hurdle.
Using the verb survive, to survive.
Right. Il survit à la perte de l'amitié du roi. He survives the loss of the king's friendship.
Which is a huge deal.
It is. Now, losing a friend is tough, but in 17th century absolutist France, losing the Sun King's friendship wasn't just a bummer, it was career-ending.
To say the least. It meant exile from the court, loss of income, and potentially danger to your life.
So the verb survivor here isn't about surviving an illness, it's about surviving a total social and political collapse.
And he does survive it. He pivots, dedicates himself to writing those famous tales for his children, and the cycle gracefully closes.
Il vieillit et meurt à Paris en 1703. He grows old and dies in Paris in 1703.
By tracking just those half-dozen verbs, we haven't just memorized vocabulary, we've mapped the entirety of a legendary man's existence.
That is so cool. Okay, so that covers the physical existence and the passage of time. But what about the inner mind?
Well, the source transitions smoothly into les états d'esprit, states of mind.
We are talking about verbs like comprendre, to understand, croire, to believe.
And this brings us right to the edge of a massive grammatical cliff that a lot of English speakers fall off of when learning French.
Oh boy, reflexive verbs.
Reflexive verbs are the ultimate test of our step 2, understanding the why behind the mechanics.
They really are. Because in English, we are used to a very linear subject-verb-object structure.
Right. I throw the ball, I wash the car, the action goes outward.
But French requires you to continually turn the action inward.
Always.
Let me run an analogy by you because this used to break my brain. Reflexive verbs, it's basically holding a mirror up to your own actions.
I like that.
If the subject and the object are the same person, the action bounces off the mirror and hits you right back. But why? Why is French so obsessed with the self as the object of the action?
The mirror analogy is incredibly accurate, actually. The French language demands a heightened level of precision regarding who is receiving the action, even if it's an abstract mental action.
It forces the speaker into a posture of personal accountability almost.
Yes, personal accountability and internal reflection. The text uses memory as the prime example of this. To remember is se souvenir or se rappeler.
So if I translate that literally through the mirror, I'm not saying I remember the movie. I'm saying I remember myself of the movie.
Essentially, yes, you are bringing the memory back to yourself. The reflexive pronoun has to agree with the subject holding the mirror.
So, je me souviens, I remember myself. Tu te souviens, you remember yourself.
Exactly. Il se souvient, he remembers himself. The source gives a very nostalgic example sentence here. Je me souviens de mes amis d'enfance. I remember my childhood friends.
But wait, the source also lists se rappeler right next to it, with the example, nous nous rappelons bien cette comédie. We remember this comedy well.
Ah, yes.
If they both mean to remember, why do we need two different mirrored verbs? What's the functional difference?
This is a subtle mechanical nuance that is absolutely crucial for fluency. Se souvenir inherently requires the preposition de.
Okay, so you must say, Je me souviens de quelque chose.
Right. Se rappeler, however, takes a direct object, meaning it connects directly to the noun without a preposition.
Je me rappelle cette comédie. Got it.
But there is also a philosophical layer. Linguistically, se souvenir often carries a bit more emotional, lasting weight. It's a deeper memory.
Interesting. And se rappeler.
Se rappeler implies recalling a specific fact, pulling data back into your conscious mind. It's the difference between holding a feeling and retrieving a file.
Even though native speakers probably use them interchangeably in casual conversation.
Oh, all the time.
Well,
But the nuance is there.
holding a feeling versus retrieving a file. That makes perfect sense. And speaking of holding a feeling, the text smoothly slides from states of mind into les états d'âme, the states of the soul.
The feelings.
Yeah. And the spectrum presented here is intense.
It does not shy away from the extremes of the human condition. You have the highs, like adore, to adore, and se réjouir to be delighted at.
But right alongside them, you have the profound lows, mépriser, to despise, and craindre, to fear.
It's the inclusion of verbs like refoul or to suppress that really caught my attention.
Oh yeah. The source provides the sentence, Il est facile de refouler même les désirs les plus vifs. It is easy to suppress even the strongest desires.
That is a heavy, almost psychoanalytic statement to drop into a language lesson.
Right. It reveals how French pedagogy operates. You aren't just learning the translation for the word suppress. The text is inviting you to debate the human capacity for suppression.
It assumes the learner wants to engage with deep psychological concepts.
Okay, I have to stop you on one specific idiomatic expression in this section, because the literal translation is completely unhinged.
Let me guess.
The phrase used to say, I miss you. The source lists, Je m'ennuie de toi.
Ah, yes.
Now, using that reflexive mirror we just talked about, s'ennuyer means to be bored, right?
It does.
So je m'ennuie de toi literally translates to, I bore myself of you.
Yes, literally.
If I tell someone I bore myself of you, they're going to pack their bags. How does an insult translate to, I miss you?
This is exactly why a bilingual dictionary will lead you astray, and why we have to understand the contextual why.
Please explain, because I am lost.
You are correct that s'ennuyer alone means to be bored. Je m'ennuie means I am bored. But the addition of the preposition "ça" followed by a person completely transforms the emotional gravity of the phrase.
How so?
When you say je m'ennuie de toi, you are saying that the absence of this person has rendered your entire reality tedious.
Oh.
The world without you is dull, empty, and devoid of interest.
So you aren't saying you are a boring person. You are saying because you are not here, literally everything else in the universe is boring to me.
Precisely. It is a profound, melancholic yearning. The source actually pairs it with a follow-up clause to ensure the learner grasps the mood.
Which is?
Je m'ennuie de toi, je suis triste. I miss you. I am sad. It's an ache, not an insult.
That is incredibly poetic once you understand the mechanics. Okay, so we've mapped the inner self. We've gone from the biological life cycle to the reflexive mirror of our thoughts, down into the deep, melancholic yearnings of the soul.
Quite a journey.
But we don't exist in a vacuum.
Right. Which brings us to the next phase of our journey, the social web.
How do we take all these complex internal states and actually express them to the outside world?
Exactly. The source titles this broader category communiquer. And it's very telling that the first subcategory isn't just about chatting or making small talk.
It is
Prendre parti.
taking a stand or taking a position.
Which reflects a core pillar of French social interaction, the intellectual debate. Right. If you are going to socialize in France, you need verbs with some actual teeth. You can't just be passive.
The list gives us a
Confirmer.
to state or confirm, avouer, to confess,
Persuader.
to persuade.
The example sentence is, on l'a persuadé d'accepter le travail. They persuaded him to take the job.
You also have to know how to hold the line when challenged, utilizing verbs like
Refuser.
to refuse,
Rejeter.
to reject.
In Anglo-Saxon cultures, bringing up a heated debate at a dinner party might be seen as rude or aggressive.
For sure, people try to avoid politics at the dinner table.
But in French culture, engaging in a rigorous defense of your position, prendre un parti, is often considered a sign of respect for your intelligence and a standard form of socialization.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, though. It's the vocabulary the text uses for advising and teaching.
Okay, let's look at it.
It lists enseigner, to teach, and expliquer, to explain, which are standard. But then it uses the verb
Inculquer.
And
Ils ont inculqué des principes moraux. They instilled moral values into me. That word feels so heavy, almost like sculpting a person out of clay.
Is a fantastic verb. Etymologically, it comes from Latin roots, meaning to stamp or press in.
To press in, wow.
It implies a repetitive, persistent planting of ideas until they become a permanent part of a person's foundational character.
And right next to it, the source lists the verb
corriger,
to correct. The example is, ils me corrigent fréquemment. They corrected me frequently.
That paints a very specific picture of the French educational and familial philosophy, doesn't it?
It really does. Education isn't just passing along data. It is an active, rigorous, sometimes demanding process of shaping a human being.
The frequent correction is seen as necessary care, not just criticism.
Exactly. From shaping a person's character, the text naturally progresses to how people shape their connections with one another.
The section Forger de relation, building relationships. And honestly, this vocabulary list reads like the storyboard for a classic romantic comedy.
It tracks the chronological progression of romance perfectly. It starts at step 1, faire la connaissance de, to make the acquaintance of, the initial introduction.
Then it escalates to faire la cour, literally to make court or to court someone.
It sounds so delightfully old-fashioned, but it's a necessary cultural step. And if the courting is successful, you reach se marier avec, to get married to, and eventually fonder une famille, to start a family.
To put these verbs into context, the source provides an exercise narrative about a couple named David and Giselle.
It's basically a fairy tale love story designed to test your ability to sequence relationship verbs.
It's a very sweet narrative that highlights specific French cultural touchstones. David accompanies his sister Annie to a friend's house. That is the inciting incident.
The text reads, c'est ainsi qu'il fait la connaissance de Giselle. That is how he makes the acquaintance of Giselle.
And there is no hesitation here. The source explicitly states, les deux jeunes gens se plaisent tout de suite. The two young people are pleasing to one another immediately. Love at first sight.
But David doesn't just run off with Giselle. He knows he has to navigate the social web of her family. He has to charm the parents.
And how does he do it? The text specifies the physical interactions of respect in France. Il serre la main au papa et fait la bise à la maman.
He shakes the dad's hand and gives a kiss of bias to the mom.
The bise is a crucial cultural vocabulary word. It's not a romantic kiss. It is the traditional cheek-to-cheek greeting.
By giving the mother the bice, David is confidently stepping into a space of familiar warmth while still showing respect.
It's a delicate social dance, and he executes it perfectly.
He absolutely secures their approval. They start going out regularly, and the story culminates on their wedding day, where they promise to protect and respect each other for life.
It is overwhelmingly wholesome.
It is. But the source material doesn't let us stay in that fairy tale for long, does it?
No, it is bracingly realistic about the human experience. Right after the vocabulary for building relationships, we are hit with the section Rempart des relations, breaking relationships.
The dark side of the social web. If David and Giselle were the rom-com, the next narrative exercise about a couple named Jojo and Mimi is pure soap opera melodrama.
It's a masterclass in the vocabulary of conflict and emotional distress. We learn that Jojo and Mimi, say disputant, they quarrel or argue constantly.
And the root of the issue introduces a very powerful verb. Jojo suspects Mimi of cheating on him. Jojo soupçonne Mimi de le tromper.
Tromper. It literally means to deceive or trick, but in the context of a relationship, it is the exact word for cheating or being unfaithful.
And because of this suspicion, Jojo feels humiliated. Mimi, meanwhile, is deeply saddened by his lack of trust in her.
So she reaches a breaking point. Elle voudrait le quitter. She would like to leave him.
Quitter is a definitive, forceful verb. It isn't just taking a break. It is the verb for leaving a person, abandoning a place, severing the tie.
It's a hard rupture, and the source uses this emotional rupture as a bridge to an even darker category, aggressor being aggressive.
Yeah, the escalation here gave me linguistic whiplash. We go from a bad breakup straight into actual felony crimes.
It starts relatively mild with verbs like agasser and embedder, which mean to annoy or bother.
But then we leap to calomnier, to slander, cambrioler, to rob or burglarize, and straight up poignarder, to stab.
It might seem shocking to find poignarder in the same list as faire la cour, but it reflects the full spectrum of reality that an advanced speaker needs to navigate.
I suppose if you want to watch a French thriller, read a newspaper, or understand a police report, you need this vocabulary.
Exactly. The text gives the practical example. Un voleur a cambriolé la maison du voisin. A thief robbed the neighbor's house.
True. You can't just learn the happy words. But thankfully, the text balances this aggression with a comprehensive section on humanity's capacity to care for one another, à l'aide des autres, helping others.
For every verb of harm we just learned, there is a counterverb of healing.
Right. Instead of blesser to injure, we are given soulager to relieve and apaiser to appease.
Instead of effrayer to frighten, we have réconforter to comfort and consoler.
And to anchor these verbs in reality, the source provides a narrative setting that I found profoundly moving. Dr. Poirot's hospital.
It's a brilliant setup because it bypasses the clinical, surgical side of medicine and focuses purely on holistic emotional care.
The text highlights how the nurses dedicate themselves to taking care of the sick, prendre soin des malades. But the true focal point is a group of young volunteers who visit the hospital.
Right. They aren't administering high Vs. They are there to divertir, to entertain the patients.
The narrative details how they tell funny stories, they joke around plaisanter, and they even imitate famous celebrities.
The goal is to make the patients laugh to distract them when they are in pain.
It reframes socializing. It's not just about debating at a dinner party or falling in love. At its core, social interaction is a vital tool for comforting the vulnerable.
If we pull back for a moment and look at the architecture of the source material we began, in the isolated inner mind, exploring existence and memory.
Then we navigated the complex web of human relationships, the romance, the betrayal, the comfort.
The logical next step in our journey is to map the physical space where all of this drama actually takes place.
Exactly. We've got the soul, we've got the friends, now where do we live? That brings us to section 3 of the source navigating the physical world.
We have to maintain our environment and move through it. Let's talk about the vocabulary of housekeeping, or entretenir un foyer.
I was fascinated by the highly specific narrative provided here about a woman named Aurore moving into her new apartment.
It's a deeply detailed sequence of nesting. Aurore isn't just moving, she is completely overhauling a 2-room city apartment logé dans un 2 pièces.
Before she can enjoy her new space, the text walks us through a mountain of physical labor expressed through very specific action verbs.
Painting the living room a light yellow.
Elle peint. The verb is peindre.
She has to clower, nail a coat rack to the entryway wall.
She is on her hands and knees, scrubbing the parquet floors, frotter le parquet. But the detail that really stuck out to me was her daily routine.
Aérer l'appartement.
Yes, she airs it out every single day by opening the windows aérées.
We have to pause on a error, because it is a massive cultural concept in France and across much of Europe.
Is it really that big of a deal?
The practice of throwing open the windows every morning to bring in fresh air and purge the stale air is considered an absolute baseline necessity for hygiene and well-being.
And they do this regardless of the temperature outside. Even in the dead of winter, you air the rooms.
It stems from historical beliefs about health and air circulation, and it remains a deeply ingrained daily habit. You must purge the space before you can truly install air settle in.
But the text also points out that for many, maintaining a home extends beyond the walls of the apartment. It moves to gardening.
And it includes a cultural note that gardening is a highly favored pastime for Parisians, many of whom leave the concrete of the city on weekends to tend to their plots in the countryside.
This is where the French language's demand for precision really shines. When you garden in English, you might just say you're digging a hole or planting some seeds.
The French vocabulary gets wonderfully granular.
Retourner la terre avec une bêche.
Turning the soil with a spade,
Creuser.
digging deeply.
If you purchase a wild, untamed piece of land, you must déboiser, deforest or clear trees, or défricher, clear the brush and undergrowth.
And then there was a verb I had literally never encountered before.
Faire des boutures. Or bouturer.
To take cuttings and propagate new plants from them.
The text says, Il est amusant de bouturer les plantes. It is fun to propagate plants. That is advanced, highly specific horticultural vocabulary, just sitting in a general language learning text.
It speaks volumes about the French cultural connection to agriculture, terroir, and the cultivation of nature. Gardening isn't just a chore, it's an art form with its own dedicated lexicon.
But of course, to get from that meticulously aired-out city apartment to that carefully propagated country garden, you have to travel.
Which transitions us to the vocabulary of conduire, driving, and
Voyager.
traveling.
Driving in a foreign country is always incredibly intimidating, and looking at this vocabulary list proves exactly why. It's highly regulated.
You have to passer le permis, Take and pass the driver's test. You must strictly respecter le code, respect the rules of the road.
And you have to be linguistically prepared for hazards. You can't just know how to say turn left. The text provides a very practical, high-stakes warning.
Il y a du verglas sur cette route. Tu dérapes. There's black ice on this road. You are skidding.
Knowing the noun verglas, black ice, and to skid or lose control is crucial in a winter emergency.
Absolutely. But let's step away from the stress of black ice. Let's say we are planning a grand vacation.
The source details the travel preparations of a couple, Marie and Paul, who are organizing a trip to Paris. And the vocabulary reveals that they do not just wing it.
Not at all. Their preparation, les préparatifs, are methodical. The first step is always to se renseigner, a great reflexive verb meaning to inform oneself or inquire.
They need to get information about airfares, the schedules for guided tours, all the logistics.
They finally book a flight, but they purposefully choose to
Faire escale.
make a layover or stopover.
And when they arrive in Paris, they want to séjourner in the Latin Quarter. I love the verb séjourner. It means to stay, but it implies a temporary yet settled residence.
You aren't just passing through a hotel lobby, you are dwelling there for a specific period.
It's about navigating the physical world with absolute intention. You inquire, you stop over, you dwell.
And this intentionality perfectly sets up the fourth major category of our source material.
We've gone from the inner mind through social circles and across physical environments. Now we apply the analytical lens.
How do we study the mechanics of this physical world? And how do we heal the biological bodies moving through it? We enter the realms of science and medicine.
The source takes a moment to point out France's incredibly rich, world-changing scientific history. It mentions the Montgolfier brothers, who invented the hot air balloon in the 18th century.
Noting that they made several attempts before finally managing to succeed.
It mentions modern Nobel laureates in physics like Claude Cohen-Tanouji.
The vocabulary provided for La Science is built entirely around the structure of the scientific method. These are verbs of rigorous inquiry.
Observer.
To observe,
Analyser.
to analyze,
Déduire.
to deduce, and conclure, to conclude.
But to really anchor these verbs, the source dives deep into the narrative of one of the most famous scientific partnerships in human history, Marie and Pierre Curie.
This narrative exercise is fantastic because it puts those analytical verbs into a high-stakes context. We start with Marie Curie, originally from Poland, studying at the Sorbonne in Paris.
She becomes deeply interested in Wilhelm Röntgen's discoveries regarding X-rays. She marries Pierre Curie, who is actively recueillir les données, collecting data on magnetism.
Their collaboration is defined by relentless, physical action verbs. Marie fait des expériences. She conducts intense experiments on uranium ore.
Through her observations, she deduces that the radiation she's measuring is far more intense than what uranium alone could produce.
And that deduction leads to the massive, history-altering verb découvrir, to discover. She discovers two entirely new radioactive elements, polonium and radium.
She then has to defend her work, and she proves her results in her doctoral thesis.
And the culmination of this grueling scientific journey is represented by a verb of profound partnership and generosity partager, to share.
In 1903, she shares the Nobel Prize in Physics with her husband Pierre and Henri Becquerel.
By framing the vocabulary around the Curies, the text transforms abstract verbs like deduce and prove into a gripping narrative of human achievement.
And all that rigorous scientific inquiry inevitably trickles down into applied science, specifically la médecine, medicine.
The text highlights the global impact of the French medical community, placing a spotlight on Médecins Sans Frontières, or Doctors Without Borders.
This organization, created by French doctors, is dedicated to bringing free, emergency medical care to developing countries and conflict zones.
Because of that context, the medical vocabulary provided here is very high stakes. These are verbs of intervention and crisis.
Diagnostiquer.
To diagnose a complex illness.
Greffer.
To transplant an organ.
Transfuser.
To transfuse blood.
And ultimately, the goals of all this intervention:
Sauver des vies.
to save a life,
Guérir.
to cure or heal.
Right.
Wait, hold on. I'm looking at this list of intense surgical verbs. We're talking about kidney transplants, blood transfusions, and resuscitations.
Yes.
But if I'm just a tourist spending 2 weeks in Paris, I am probably not going to be scrubbing in for an organ transplant. I'm vastly more likely to just catch a bug on the metro. I need to know how to tell a French pharmacist that my throat is on fire. Does this text actually help with everyday minor survival, or is it only prepping me for medical school?
That is a very valid critique, and it's a trap. Some advanced language materials fall into giving you the vocabulary for a crisis, but ignoring the mundane.
Exactly.
However, the source actually pivots brilliantly to address exactly your concern. Right after La Médecine, it provides a subcategory simply titled La Santé, Everyday Health and Physical Symptoms.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay, so what are the verbs for just feeling miserable?
It breaks down the exact physical reflexes you're likely to experience. Verbs like éternuer, to sneeze,
frissonner,
to shiver, specifically from a fever or chill, and
transpirer or suer,
to sweat.
And it provides the exact idiomatic phrasing you need if you do catch that bug on the metro. In English, we say catch a cold. In French, it's a reflexive verb, s'enrhumer.
The text gives the example, tu t'es terriblement enrhumé. You caught a terrible cold.
And what is the cultural prescription for that terrible cold? The text advises, il vaut mieux que tu gardes le lit. It is better that you stay in bed.
Garder le lit, literally, to keep or guard the bed.
I love that phrasing. It makes being sick sound slightly more noble. You aren't just lying there miserably, you are actively guarding the bed from intruders by refusing to leave it.
It definitely adds a touch of dramatic flair to a simple sick day. So we've successfully mapped the physical biological body and how to heal it.
Now we reach the final, and arguably the most rapidly evolving frontier in our source material. Section 5, the digital frontier.
We are moving from the biological world to the modern, invisible digital landscape that connects every previous category we've discussed.
Technology, the internet, and social media. This section is wild to analyze because language has to evolve at a breakneck speed just to keep up with the tech.
The source introduces ICT, information and communication technologies, and it doesn't start with how to send a text. It starts with a massive socioeconomic concept, le fossé numérique, the digital divide.
Yes, the widening gap between those who have access to high-speed internet and modern hardware and those who are left behind.
The text highlights a global mission, specifically citing the UN. Une des missions des Nations Unies était de réduire le fossé numérique dans les pays en développement, to reduce the digital divide in developing countries.
So we have this massive influx of new technology, primarily invented and popularized in English-speaking hubs like Silicon Valley. So what does this all mean for the evolution of the French language itself?
When a new tech concept drops, how does the French language handle the sudden invasion of English words?
This is where the source reveals a fascinating, massive linguistic divergence between different French-speaking regions of the world. It directly contrasts how European French handles this versus how Canadian French handles it.
This part absolutely blew my mind. If you look at Europe, specifically France, they often take the path of least resistance.
They just absorb the English terms into their daily vocabulary, maybe giving them a slight French accent. They say unpodcast, they use the verb podcaster, they say le weekend, and they use email.
But if you look at Canada, specifically the province of Quebec, the reaction is entirely different. In Quebec, there is a fierce institutional dedication to preserving the purity of the French language and actively resisting Anglicisms.
Organizations like the Office Québécois de la Langue Française work tirelessly to invent fiercely French equivalents for every new technological concept that emerges.
It is linguistic self-defense, and the words they create are incredible.
Instead of passively accepting the word podcast, Canadian French created the word balado-diffusion.
It's a brilliant combination of balade, a stroll, a walk, or wandering, and diffusion, broadcasting. Wandering broadcasting.
You take the broadcast on a walk with you. That is so much more poetic and descriptive than the word podcast, which is just a defunct reference to an old Apple iPod.
It's incredibly inventive, and the text notes their approach to electronic mail. While the French in Europe might casually say email or mail, the Canadians created courriel.
It's a seamless portmanteau of courier, mail, and electronic.
The European French will recognize and sometimes use courriel in highly formal or government contexts, but in Canada, courriel is the absolute everyday standard.
It demonstrates how language isn't just a tool for communication. It is a vital weapon for cultural preservation.
Let's dive a little deeper into the mechanics of low langage internet language. Because navigating a French website requires learning a specific set of grammatical rules and symbols.
Let's talk about the @ symbol. In English, it's just @. Simple. What is it in French?
It is called l'arobas, but what the text points out, which is so interesting linguistically, is how unsettled this word still is within the language.
Because it was forced into daily, mainstream use so rapidly by the advent of email, the language hasn't entirely agreed on how to handle it.
The text lists multiple accepted spellings: arobas, 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 arobas.
Robust. Can't even decide how to spell itself. It's like the Wild West of grammar.
Exactly. Furthermore, it has two accepted pronunciations. You can vocalize the final sound, or you can drop it entirely.
And grammatically, it can even be treated as a masculine or a feminine noun, depending on the dictionary you consult. It is a symbol of technological chaos embedded right into the dictionary.
And the chaos continues when you actually log onto a website because the grammatical voice of the internet is different in French.
In English, websites are incredibly demanding. They yell at you in the imperative command form. Click here, download this, subscribe now.
French websites certainly can use the imperative form. You will see
Cliquer,
imprimer, print,
s'inscrire,
register.
But the text makes a crucial observation for learners, very often. French digital interfaces utilize the infinitive form of the verb for their instructions rather than a direct command.
Right, so instead of the commanding cliquer, you'll just see the unconjugated cliquer, to click.
Instead of télécharger, it's télécharger to download,
Right.
ajouter to add, annular to cancel, supprimer to delete.
It completely changes the psychological dynamic between the user and the screen. It feels less demanding, softer.
The website isn't ordering you to do something, it's simply presenting the action as an available option.
It's a subtle shift in UX user experience language, but a profound one. From the interface of the computer, the text zooms in on the physical device that dominates our modern lives.
The smartphone, or as formerly known, l'ordiphone, or le smartphone. The vocabulary provided here defines our tactile, physical interaction with the digital world.
We don't just push buttons anymore. We tap and swipe on an écran tactile, a touch screen.
We type our messages on a clavier virtual, a virtual keyboard. We listen to a liste de lecture, a playlist.
And we navigate our day using applications, apps, to do everything from checking the weather forecast, the service météo, to buying train tickets, l'achat de billets.
But the smartphone isn't just a tool for passive consumption. The text makes a hard pivot into how these devices have revolutionized the way humanity produces and distributes information.
This leads us to the section on l'actualité, current events, and news.
The shift described here is seismic. It is no longer just giant, monolithic TV stations, les chaînes de télévision, broadcasting the news from the top down to a passive audience.
The text introduces the vocabulary of the citoyen reporter, the citizen reporter.
This is a regular person on the street who happens to witness an event, a témoin.
The source gives a very modern example, a witness to a sudden cyclone who pulls out their smartphone, films the destruction, and sends the video directly to the TV station or uploads it themselves.
They are generating content, amateur content, and témoignages, testimonies, distributing it instantly to the réseau mondial, the World Wide Web.
This completely shatters the traditional gatekeeping of news. Anyone with a touchscreen is a broadcaster.
And that flows directly into the final subtopic of our massive vocabulary stack, social media.
les réseaux sociaux,
This is the vocabulary of the blogosphere and digital networking. Words like billet or note for a blog post, hyperlink for a hyperlink, but it goes deeper than just the technical terms.
If we connect all of this to the bigger picture, the text introduces a beautiful, almost philosophical term for what this global digital connectivity can achieve at its absolute best.
L'intelligence collective. Collective intelligence.
L'intelligence collective. That is a powerful phrase to stand on. The text explicitly states, les blogs permettent à l'intelligence collective de résoudre des problèmes ou d'organiser des activités. Blogs and social networks allow collective intelligence to solve problems or organize activities.
It reframes social media. It isn't just a platform for posting pictures of your lunch or arguing with strangers. At its core, it is a tool to interact in order to pool human knowledge and solve global issues.
Which brings our journey through this source material full circle. We started at the very beginning of the deep dive, isolated in the inner self, contemplating our own état d'être and reflecting on our own memories.
And we end here, swept up in l'intelligence collective, a global digital mind connected entirely by language.
Okay, let's take a deep breath. We have covered an astronomical amount of ground today.
We really did.
We took that massive, daunting stack of vocabulary lists, and we applied our three-step method. We categorized the words, moving from the human soul to the smartphone.
We dug into the why, exploring the psychological mirror of reflexive verbs and the cultural weight of French debate.
And we contextualized everything with narratives, from Charles Perrault surviving the king's anger to Marie Curie discovering radium in her lab.
But as comprehensive as this deep dive has been, there is one final critical step. And this step isn't for us to do, it is for you listening right now.
Exactly. This is our call to action. We want you to look back over the concepts we discussed today and choose the vocabulary and expressions that genuinely resonated with you.
Maybe it's the futuristic optimism of Je m'imagine ce que ce sera dans 10 ans. I imagine what it will be like in 10 years.
Take those phrases and speak them out loud to yourself. Seriously, when you are alone in your car commuting or standing at the sink doing the dishes, talk to yourself in French.
Speaking out loud, even to an empty room, is the necessary bridge between understanding a concept conceptually and actually achieving fluency.
But to truly cross that bridge and master the language, you cannot operate in an echo chamber indefinitely. You need a human guide to help you navigate the diagnostic muddy waters we talked about at the very beginning of the show.
By the way, speaking of setting the right mood for learning, I love how bright and sunny your background is today. No dark colors. It just feels so inviting.
Oh, thanks. It's actually a similar setup to our top recommendation.
Cool.
If you want to take these categorized vocabulary lists, these idiomatic expressions, and this step-by-step methodology and put them into practice, we highly suggest you learn and speak with teacher Emanuela.
Yes. Teacher Emanuela is exactly the kind of guide you need for this next step. She holds a university degree and possesses years of dedicated experience specifically in teaching conversational and fluency French.
She can take all this complex vocabulary we unpacked today and help you actively use it in dynamic, real-time conversation. It's one thing to know the word for a kidney transplant or a digital divide. It's another to discuss it fluidly.
She will enhance your speaking skills, perfect your pronunciation, and provide the exact expert correction you need to sound natural and confident.
So as you step away from this deep dive and continue your language journey, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over.
It builds on our discussion of the digital frontier. We saw today how Canada actively invented the word balado diffusion to protect their cultural identity, while France passively adopted the English word podcast.
As you learn these words and immerse yourself in this language, ask yourself, does the language you speak fundamentally shape the technology you are able to build and use? Or does the relentless, rapid pace of modern technology force your language, and by extension, your culture, to change against its will?
That is a brilliant question to ponder, and it gets right to the heart of why we study language in the first place.
Thank you so much for joining us on this massive deep dive into the French language and the human experience. Keep exploring those lists, keep questioning the mechanics, and above all, keep speaking. We will catch you next time.